Hi, everybody. I'm Kit,
I'm Cade,
and we're real people.
doing real reviews.
Except that today we're not doing a review. We are talking to the producer and other roles of which movie?
Vampire zombies from
Runaways!
space.
Runaways! Which was one of our tough choices that we watched coming out of Calgary Underground Film Festival,
Yeah.
affectionately known as CUFF. And thank you so much, Jacob, for being here today with us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, and thank you for coming out and checking out the film. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
We did, and we brought so many people with us, and they had such a great time
Yeah.
watching your film too. It was very, very fun. We did have high expectations going in because I said I kept getting a feeling that it was going to be. I was like, I get Rocky Horror Picture Show vibes, and you were like, I get Indiana Jones vibes.
Yeah.
And it turns out he was right, and I was just there. There is no musical, which is okay. I guess like our first question to you, Jacob, was going to be, what does it take to make an independent film? And just walk us through that and a little bit of the premise of your movie.
Yeah, so our movie, the title really says it all. It's Vampire Zombies from Space. It is a satire and parody of horror and B movies from the 1950s. So just a really dumb, fun comedy where a motley crew of characters get together to try and stop Dracula and some space vampires. Um, so it's yeah, it's fun little film. Yeah. Um, as far as what it took to make the film, I mean, it's it's so difficult to get anything made, and I think this really was a labor of love, just in terms of the amount of people we had and locations and vehicles, and it's a period piece. It's practical effects. It's like everything you shouldn't do on your first like indie movie. We were just like, yeah, let's do that. Um, but it took a lot of really talented, dedicated artists coming together in every department, really. We had miniatures, we had practical effects, we shot black and white. There's so many things that go into it. And I guess my answer to the question, if I had to distill it down, is a dedicated group of artists who really believe in the project. Because you could look at that movie, just the name, and rightfully so, you'd be like, well, that's stupid. And then it is, and that's kind of the goal. But everyone believed and loved and wanted to make that stupid thing as realistic and believable and good as possible. So an army of talented artists, I would say, is the answer to like get an indie film made.
That's
And a lot of
that's a
them
great answer.
friends. Yeah.
Yeah. We definitely felt like there was a beautiful mix of like playing something straight and doing things that were very like purposeful and intriguing so that your storyline mattered, and then and a great job of those satirical silly moments being really obvious. And like, so one of those would be vampires turning into bats and it being a very obvious fake rubber
Yeah.
bat that then flies a UFO that
Yeah.
also has bat wings. And so that you're captivated and you're intrigued of the storyline, and then there'd be these moments, and we feel like one of the things about comedy that's really hard to achieve. Well, I guess I won't speak for you. I struggle with comedy because I don't feel like people do a great job of timing. I don't think that they understand like tact and tone and placement and when to be campy and when to back off from it. And I think that you see that a lot in comedies where they're like, well, we're making it silly, and then they stay there the whole time, and it's
Right.
and to me then things don't land.
Yeah.
And so we thought you did an excellent job of landing with some of the with the pieces, lots of physical comedy, which I do love physical comedy, dark like comedy moments, also really great timing, and just like a really great, and I was curious like from that standpoint, which I guess is an extra question. So I said I wasn't gonna do that, but because I'm curious about if you knew like when you were going through it, you're like, this is gonna land, and I know how to time this with the editor, and it's going to. Could you tell that it was going to be funny?
Yeah, totally. And thank you for saying that. That's a very nice compliment. Yeah, I think what a lot of comedies do to their detriment is they have the characters like wink at the camera and like say the line like very funny, like that character is telling a joke. And I think the key, at least for me in the comedy I like to watch, is like to these characters, it's not a joke. Like, even though it's a funny line, to them, they're serious about it. Like, there's a scene where there's a greaser character and he's lamenting the loss of his best friend who he also had a threesome with. And the joke, yeah, is that he had a threesome, and it is a joke, but to him, that was a special moment that means something to him. And so when he's crying and he's serious, like he's internalizing that, it was meaningful to that character, even though it's a ridiculous thing and it's really
Yeah.
stupid and goofy. So I think not winking at the camera, and also, like, I'm a huge fan of Mel Brooks, and something or he instilled early on when I would, like, listen to his commentary tracks was like, yeah, I'm doing parody and yeah, I'm doing satire, but everything around it needs to feel real, like the thing you're satirizing. So we also wanted, like, really, authentic costumes, really good, like, the miniatures couldn't just look, like, super shitty. They had to look a little bit shitty, as if someone was trying, but this was the best they could do. And that's kind of the same logic with the joke is like, we put a lot of work into making something so stupid, and that in and of itself is kind of funny. So it's an earnest approach to idiocy. Uh, and as far as it landing, yeah, I mean, me and my writing partner Alex, we kind of trust our own sense of humor, and trust that someone in the world is gonna find the same stuff we find funny. And like I said, we put a lot of work in it. We did 24 drafts of this script, so uh, there is some massaging, and like maybe you do have a couple dumb jokes in there. And don't get me wrong, there's a ton of dumb jokes in the movie that maybe I should have cut out, but uh, you kind of weed away the like ones that really don't land, and then you're left with like what's hopefully a pretty strong comedic piece that is also serious to its characters, because that's the other thing. If the characters aren't serious about the journey they're going on or what they're trying to do, then the comedy almost doesn't matter. Like, you still need a good story to back up the comedy. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite scene? Was it a comedy scene or was it one of the more horror scenes that when you were making it, you were like, oh, I loved writing this and I love seeing it come to life?
There is a character who's like a take on like a US military general. He's this big rambling, like he just does gymnastics to say things the least convenient way, where he's doing like he calls a cigarette a cylindrical tobacco filled tube. That actor just like nailed the character, and just watching him in like one take do this like on and on and on monologue was cracking us up like crazy. And there's also a scene where a guy fights a pair of legs, severed legs, which was pretty fun as well to try and figure out and do. So I would say those two are probably up there on my
Nice.
favorites.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite?
I loved the like fight scene, and I hate VFX, and so again,
Ah,
this is what I think why we were so intrigued to sit with you because
yeah.
um I'm not as part of Cade and Kit, like I'm just not easily impressed, and VFX is really tough for me, and comedy stuff for me, and I just felt like both accounts that you did where you did not a practical effects and you did a VFX, I thought it was really well, and so in that scene where yes, you had green screened out half of a body for a man to fight his legs was hilarious and so well done, and also added because sometimes I think that VFX doesn't add to a storyline. It added to it, and then it was already like this is kind of ridiculous, and then you did it just a little bit longer than you should, and
Yeah.
then that was funny because you were still
Yeah.
he was doing flip kicks and things like that, and I was like, this is what they really went there, and so yeah, I thought that was really good. Um, there was the penetration scene, like how to kill
Oh yeah.
in
Oh,
front of the
yeah. That was pretty funny.
and then Jacob, you had talked about at the film that, the midway point, well, kind of 2/3 of the way through, there was a gentleman who's like, "We shouldn't, guys, like we're not gonna make it out. We're gonna like we should." And it sounds like he's gonna be like, "Let's have an uprising and kill everyone," and that's all these zombies that are on our doorstep. But then he decides, "Let's kill ourselves." Then he does.
Yeah.
Then he does, and they're all like, "No, we're not gonna do that,
Yes.
man." All right. And then they just like kind of kept continuing on with their life, which again, it was dark comedy. I very much landed with me, which I thought was really well done. But you had said that that was actually going to be one of the endings. It was one of the endings that you had thought of for the film, and then you
Yeah.
continued it forward. Yeah.
Yeah, so the scene you're talking about, it's kind of third act. The town's surrounded, Dracula's gonna kill them all, and there's this one kind of like patriot that steps up, and he's like, we're not going to let them win, blah, blah, blah. They can't turn us into zombies if we're already dead. And everyone's like, yeah, they're really with him. And then he's like, so let's just kill ourselves. And then he starts hatcheting himself. And yeah, nobody else is on board after they see what it entails. Um, but yeah, originally in the very earliest version of this script, it was going to end with everyone is so overwhelmed with this guy's speech and really believes in it, and the patriotism's flying, and they all are like running around killing themselves, and then the vampires, whom there's like 4 of at that point, are left standing there like, what the hell? Like, we didn't figure this into our plan. And I still really liked that idea, but it we were kind of going for like a holy grail, like kind of disappointing ending, but we figured maybe we need like a proper ending after making people sit for an hour and a half. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. What about you? Did you have a favorite?
Well, I think it's interesting to hear that you did 24 takes of the script, because it definitely shows, because it's like every scene's kind of well thought out and very smart. So kind of like replaying it, like even in the beginning where the first girl gets eaten by the zombies on like the side of the road, and like her sister's like going to the police station, and then like the secretary's there, like all of it's pretty well thought out.
Oh my God. Secretary.
Yeah.
Oh, which is
So I think there was like even great character, like the characters were just good for me because they had enough of a backstory through it that they all kind of made their own.
Mhm.
Because even like in that instance, the secretary was quite funny for what role she had, kind of at the police station. So
Yes. And that was so we had just done a previous review, and I had given a film quite a low rating because they had a character and I didn't feel like they built her out enough for her to matter. And it was like quite an intense role that she was playing, but they didn't give her enough room to play it. And
Right.
but
Right.
we didn't feel that way at all with yours. Can you talk a little bit about casting and your choice on doing characters and what you were looking for, aside from like, the 1950s motif and people who felt, who fit within that. Yeah, I guess like when you're doing your characters, because you wrote them, so you'd be quite tied to them when it was, like, casting them.
Yeah, totally. So actually initially we were planning to shoot this movie summer 2020 originally. And our director Mike, yeah, and he literally said like, unless there's some global disaster, summer 2020, we're filming this thing. And
and
then of course,
And there might have
there
been
was.
something.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah. But we initially wanted to get a couple of B-lister, C-lister, like, union talent, and so we had some people in mind, like, Canadian people that we were, like, really excited about, and a couple of people got back to us with either a yes or a maybe or whatever, but then with COVID, we had to delay, and by that time, they had a laundry list of projects that were bigger and more attractive than ours, and so we had to start thinking about, "Okay, how else can we approach this?" Right? And fortunately, with a title like Vampire Zombies from Space, you're not really caring who's in it, I think. I think the draw is the name, you know exactly what you're gonna get, that's kinda what you're there for. So once we started thinking about it like that, then I was thinking, "Okay, well, what kinda, like, cults or, like, B-movie horror icons, could we get potentially?" The first one that came to my mind was, Barbara from Night of the Living Dead, Judith O'Dea. We reached out to her, she was on board right away, which was incredible to have her part of the film. I used to do some work for, Tim and Eric, and David Liebehart is one of their regular guys. He's this eccentric puppeteer. So we got him, and a couple more like Lloyd Kaufman we got, and a couple of so once we kinda had those tentpole, like, these are fun, like, little cult cameos, then we just started casting in Toronto, as well as Windsor, which is, kind of our hometown. And we just realized there's so much great talent that are maybe not union yet, or they're working towards union or whatever, and certain people just when they read it, it leapt off the page. Our greaser character, Wayne, he sent in an audition from Toronto, and, his name's Oliver Georgiou, and he just blew it out of the water. There's no question, he was the guy. Simon Reynolds, who plays the colonel as well, like, just no question. Our lead actress, Mary, she was, Jessica Antovsky. She's from Windsor. That was her first film she ever did. And I think she's fantastic in it. So we had a really great cast mix of Windsor, Toronto, and elsewhere. But then we also did a thing that I think really helped the movie where if you watch like an Ed Wood movie, this movie's heavily inspired by Ed Wood films. Um, Often you'll find a couple really wooden actors, and the reason they're so wooden is they're not actors. They're the son of this meat packer guy who paid 20 grand to make the movie, so he gets a role in the movie. So there's these non-actors interacting with actors, and it creates a really interesting dynamic. So we have a couple people in the movie who have either never acted or have no interest in acting, but we just like either how they look or how they delivered a line, and we kind of insert them into scenes as well. Our town's mayor is in. There's a scene where the one vampire Dylan is in disguise. He has like a long beard, and there's this older gentleman. His name's Ron McDermott. He's the mayor of like my hometown since I was like 5. He's been the mayor, and he just had this great delivery where he says a line the last way anyone would say the line, and it just really works. So we put a lot of those people in it too. So it's a really fun mix of like kind of notable talent, like up and coming talent, and like non actors all interacting. And I think it really lent itself to the type of movie we're trying to make.
I agree.
Yeah.
I like loved it.
I think it landed very well. Lots
Yeah.
of thought for
Mhm.
sure in that. So good job.
So obviously we saw you at Cuff, which is, known for kind of expecting the unexpected. That's the way that they've structured as the films that you typically wouldn't get to see at festival, and they do a great job with horror as well. We care a lot about genre. That's it's near and dear to my heart for sure. We like asking this question in our interviews, which is, because of course you're inspired by ones, you're going to give O's and nods and winks towards other films. Of course, all filmmakers do that. But for you, like if you were to think of like what is your absolute very favorite horror movie,
Yeah.
and why, and if you could end us off with that.
Yes. So I think for me, well, I'll do it in a story way. It'll be a little more interesting,
Let's
I
do it in
think.
a story way. He's a writer. He's a
Well,
filmmaker.
Yeah.
Let's tell a story.
yeah.
See.
So I'm probably 7 or 8 years old. And at this point in my life, I've been watching some more PG Mel Brooks films. I've been watching Laurel and Hardy, all comedy stuff, all the like Monty Python, all the comedy classics. I'm walking by a yard sale in my hometown, and I find a VHS. It's The Exorcist, which is a jump cut to the answer, but I find a VHS copy of The Exorcist, and I've never seen a horror movie in my life. And I'm like, it's got me. The cover just has me hooked. The priest standing there and the shadowy, I think chiaroscuro is the word if I remember my film class right. It just appealed to me. So I brought this home to my dad, and I was like, Dad, like I want to watch this movie. And he's like, you can't watch this movie. You're 8 years old. Like you can't do it. And I'm like, but I really think I can handle it. Like I really want to see it. And he's like, no, you can't watch it. So the next day I got home from school, and my grandmother was watching me at the time, and she was like fell asleep or something, and I'm like, I'm watching this. Like this is my time. It's now or never. And I put it in the VCR, and it scared the hell out of me. Like it was horrifying. I've did like again, Laurel and Hardy, Monty Python, all light comedy stuff, and then I'm seeing like The Exorcist at probably 8 years old. And I was raised Catholic, so I remember too, like the next time, maybe a month later or something, I'm at church or something. I was talking to someone at the church, and I'm like, "Hey, demons aren't real, right?" Like trying to be like, comfort me, like demons aren't real, and they're like, "Oh no, they're real." And I was like, "Oh my god," it scared the hell out of me. Like I'm already petrified of this movie, but as an adult, it stuck with me. It's fun to watch for that sensation, but the effects all hold up. The cinematography is beautiful. The music's incredible. Like Linda Blair's performance is great. Max von Sydow, like it's a really great film, even if you took the horror elements away. And then if you get into the behind the scenes on it, it's nuts. Like William Friedkin, yes, I think so. Yes. He used to, like, fire guns off to, like, scare Linda Blair and people on set, like, crazy stuff, like, it's wild to look into the behind the scenes of that. There's a guy in one of the operating scenes that's in real life. He was, like, a killer, they found out later on, and he's, like, operating on her in the scene, like, crazy movie through and through. But it really stuck with me just because it was so visceral, and, at that age when you're young and impressionable, and you go to if going to that person in the church and saying like, "Oh, they're not real," and they're like, "No, they are." It's just like, "Oh, Okay, so it stuck with me. But it's a great film, and that's probably my favorite.
Okay, good
Sorry
choice.
if that was too long.
Really, yeah, really, really good choice. And also very many, writer, producer, or director's favorites in the genre with good reason, and for a lot of what you're describing and how they've impacted it. And yeah, and I think we've all watched a movie too young at some point. Like I watched Reservoir Dogs when I was probably 6. And
Oh, wow. Okay.
and for like a good 10 years after anytime something scary happened, I would cover like one ear because it might get
Yeah.
cut off because it like stuck
Yeah,
with
yeah,
me.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I'm not somebody's gonna cut off my ear. And but then
Wow.
it's so funny now because I love practical effects. I'm so tied to practical effects. I really lean into them, and people who do it well, I really, and I'm like, I wonder if it was because of how that impacted me
Yeah.
because it was so honest and so well done that I was like, you can really like that's the magic of the movies. And so that's awesome. Well, Jacob, thank you so much for hanging out with us today and doing, doing what you're doing. Can you maybe give us a little snippet of what you're planning on doing next?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we have a short that we're working on potentially for Fantasia, and then writing the next feature, which might be a slasher film called Canada Day. That's what I'm so the
Nice.
same idea and kind of tone as Vampire Zombies, but different genre, different look,
Yeah.
different take. That's one thing I'm working on anyway.
Oh, thank you. That's awesome. Anything else
Right.
you want to add?
No.
Okay. Nope, you're good. Okay. Well, I'm Kit,
And I'm Cade.
and we're real people interviewing real people. And you can always sit with us. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.